Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know it has been a very long time. So today, I'm going to come back with the chapter that people don't know the most. So right now, we will start about Form 4 chapter 15. I'm not too sure if you understand this, but there's a way to understand this chapter. Hopefully, you'll be able to understand these two subtopics after you watch this video. Okay, now let's get started, guys. So first, we have to know what is menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle refers to a cycle where the women undergo every single month. The cycle is 28 days, okay? It's 28 days. So in these 28 days, we have 5 days. We call this as menstruation, okay? 5 days, okay? Within these 28 days, the first 5 days is called menstruation, okay? It's known as menstruation. Menstruation is not just blood, okay? I know that people call it period, but we don't just call it blood. We have a lot of substance inside, such as we have epithelial cell, we have mucus, and of course, the majority is actually blood. So within the first 5 days, we have menstruation. Okay, now, how does this menstrual cycle start? And when would a girl undergo menstruation? So which is menstrual cycle? Girl will start to have menstruation when she reach about 12 to 13 years old, but it depends in various different person by different person. But usually people will start at 12 or 13 years old, and this menstrual cycle, they will end at 45 to 55 years old when the woman hit menopause. So how does this cycle actually works? First, we have a place called hypothalamus. Okay, what is hypothalamus? Hypothalamus, you have to go back to Form 4 chapter 12. We learn about brain. It's in the middle of brain, but middle one is called thalamus. Right below the middle part is called hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, they will secrete an enzyme called gonadotropin releasing hormone. What is the meaning of gonad? Gonad means reproductive organs. It's called gonad. Tropin means release. So this gonadotropin releasing hormone is from the reproductive organs. It's to control, I would say, okay? It's called gonadotropin releasing hormone. So when we use the word secrete, can you see there's a word called secrete or stimulate? Secrete and stimulate. Now, when is the situation that we use secrete or stimulate? If you want to use the word secrete, okay, you have to remember, secrete, it means that at the back, we have to use the word hormone. If you want to use the word stimulate, the word behind has to be a gland. So usually the sentence goes this way. It says, stimulate gland to secrete hormone. Okay, stimulate gland to secrete hormone. So as you can see, this is a gland. They will secrete hormone. The hormone, it will stimulate a gland. Okay, you see this is how we use the word secrete and stimulate. It applies to other chapters as well, guys, okay? So, after this gonadotropin releasing hormone, it will go to a place called pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is the master gland. Okay, now how does this called master gland? Because master gland, they are able to control all other endocrine gland by secreting hormone. We call this as pituitary gland. Hypothalamus, they will control negative feedback mechanism, which is homeostasis. For example, when we have a higher blood sugar level, we have to go back to normal. That is actually by hypothalamus. Okay, you have to also go through the hypothalamus. If you don't know what is hypothalamus, pituitary gland is to control all other endocrine gland by secreting hormone. We call this as the master gland. So master gland, they will secrete two hormones, which is follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So there are two hormones from pituitary gland, and there are two hormones from the ovaries. Okay, there are two hormones from the ovaries. We have to know this in sequence, because if you learn about menstrual cycle, everything it has to be in sequence. So the hormone sequence, number 1 is follicle stimulating hormone. Number 2 is estrogen. Number 3 is luteinizing hormone. Number 4 is progesterone. All of these hormone comes in a sequence. Okay, remember it comes in a sequence. Okay, a sequence, yeah. Now, follicle stimulating hormone. When we look at the word, in the middle, we have a word called stimulating. They will stimulate the word in front. Okay, what is a follicle? In every woman, we have a lot of follicles. Since when we are in the mother's womb, we have a lot of follicles. All these follicles, they will start to grow and they will start to decrease when we have menopause or when we have menstrual cycle. Everyone will decrease in number. So this follicle will start to grow. Who is the one that causes our follicle to grow? Number 1 is follicle stimulating hormone, which is FSH, okay? They will allow our follicle to grow, and then the follicle cell will release the second hormone, which we call it as estrogen. So estrogen is from the follicle cell. So as you can see, stimulate follicle cell to secrete estrogen. Okay, the function of estrogen, we have two importance. Number 1 is to allow the follicle to grow bigger in size. Because follicle, okay, as you can see from this diagram, we have different size of follicle. We have primary follicle. Okay, we have secondary follicle, we have Graafian follicle. So we have different in size. Can you see we have primary, the smallest one, secondary, the medium size, Graafian follicle is the largest size. Primary, secondary, and Graafian follicle. How does this follicle grow? As we have mentioned, we have two different hormones that allow the follicle to grow. Number one, this hormone from primary to secondary follicle, we use follicle stimulating hormone. Secondary to Graafian follicle, to a Graafian follicle, we use estrogen. So this is how the follicle grows from primary to secondary, secondary to Graafian follicle by using different hormones. So that's why the follicle will grow. So when the follicle grow at the same time, the woman for estrogen, they will start to repair endometrium wall because period is actually the shedding of the endometrium wall. So the endometrium wall will start to repair. So once they repair it, they will undergo the next process, which we will use the next hormone called luteinizing hormone, which is LH, luteinizing hormone. The function is to stimulate ovulation. What does ovulation mean? Ovulation is a process of releasing secondary oocytes, okay? It's a process of releasing secondary oocytes. I have a lot of students who ask me, teacher, what is the difference between secondary follicle and secondary oocytes? Okay, you can understand this way because they don't ask you to write the differences, but you can understand this way. Oocytes will never grow. It's like the egg yolk. Follicle is the outer layer, which is the eggshell. So the eggshell, from small one, they can grow to the bigger one. So follicle is the outer layer. Oocytes is the inside one, which is the egg yolk. So egg yolk always remains the same. So oocytes remains the same size. Follicle, they will grow in size. That's why we have primary follicle to secondary follicle to Graafian follicle, but the inside one, they never change. If you look at this diagram, you can see that this thing here, the one in purple color over here, they never change because this is actually the oocytes. But the follicle actually grows. So now that you know how to differentiate a follicle and also a oocytes, okay, a follicle and also oocytes. So now that you know lah. So secondary follicle is actually what we know as ovum. Okay, this is what we know as ovum. But we don't really write ovum in this case because you have to remember the fact that we can only write ovum when it's being fertilized with a sperm. When it's not being fertilized with a sperm, we can only write secondary oocytes. Okay, we can only write secondary oocytes. So this luteinizing hormone, besides releasing secondary oocytes, they will also stimulate the formation of corpus luteum. Okay, now what is a corpus luteum? The one that looks like a flower over here is a corpus luteum. How does the corpus luteum form? Because this is the follicle, right? Once they release the secondary oocytes, the outer layer forms into a corpus luteum. The outer layer, which is the follicle, they form into a corpus luteum. What is the function of corpus luteum? Corpus luteum, they will secrete progesterone, okay? Corpus luteum, they will secrete progesterone. What is the function of progesterone? Progesterone, they have to take in and to vascularize. What is the meaning of vascularize? Vascularized means that they are covered with a lot of blood capillaries because it's an area where implantation of fetus will happen and implantation of embryo will happen. So they have a lot of blood capillary. We call this as vascularized. Okay, at the same time, they will inhibit FSH and LH. FSH is to stimulate follicle. LH is to stimulate ovulation, right? Now, how does this thing happen? Okay, we have to imagine a situation. Imagine right now, when a woman is pregnant, she will have high level of progesterone, right? Because she wants to maintain the thickness of endometrium wall. She wants the embryo to implant into the endometrium wall. So she have high level of progesterone. Can the woman get pregnant again when she is pregnant? The chances is very low. Well, because when the person has high level of progesterone, LH and FSH will actually decrease. So she will not produce secondary she will not produce any follicle. She will not release any secondary oocytes. So a pregnant woman cannot actually get pregnant again. Of course, there are exceptional cases where the pregnant woman get pregnant again now. Okay, that is exceptional case. But in biology, we will not allow that to happen in SPM standard, guys, because we are not studying doctor. We are just studying SPM syllabus. So this will not happen. When a person is pregnant, she will not get pregnant again because she has a low level of FSH and LH. Okay, now let me go through again the importance of the four hormones. The first hormone is called follicle stimulating hormone. If you need to write a function of FSH, I would suggest you to write this: stimulate the growth of follicles. Okay. Second one, estrogen. If you need to write a function, I would suggest you to write this: to repair endometrium wall. Okay. Third one, luteinizing hormone. Choose one to write: stimulate ovulation. Fourth one, progesterone. Then you write: thicken and vascularize the endometrium wall. Okay, all of these hormones, remember, they have to come in a sequence. FSH, estrogen, LH, progesterone. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes in a sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this, the one that comes in a sequence. Why do we have to know come in a sequence? Because on next page over here, you can see that in exam, they always ask in graph. Okay, before we go to the graph, let me go through this diagram with you first. Sometimes you might see in your objective, right? Who knows? So I have to go through this diagram with you. So this diagram, as you can see, we have 4 different colors. The one in green color, the one in purple color, the one in pink color, and the one in blue color. So all of this comes in a sequence from day 0 to day 28, because we have learned that menstruation is 5 days. Menstrual cycle is 28 days. The first 5 days, the woman will have period. Okay, we have mentioned that the woman will have period. It's called menstruation. Some girl, they have period for 5 days. Some girl will have 3 days. Some girl will have 7 days. But in biology, we only learn 5 days. Okay, no matter whether you are 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days, you are actually normal. Okay, you are actually normal. Doesn't matter whether you are 3 days, 5 days, or 7 days. But sometimes I know that your period is different than other people. That is totally normal because you guys are in high school. When your period every month comes and they come in the correct amount of days, let's say every single month you are coming for 3 days, and it has been 3 days for the rest of your life. That is actually normal to you. If your period has been 5 days every single month, it will be the 5 days for the rest of your life. That is very normal. But if one day your period is 3 days for January, 5 days for February, 7 days for March, that is something, it's a problem with you. So you have to make sure that if you think that you are not normal, you have to go for a gynae. Okay, make sure to see a gynae to see whether what are the problems that you have. Because when you are young and you notice that you have a problem, you can solve the problem very easily. When you are old and you want to have a babies, okay, in the future, maybe 10 or 20 years later, after you watch this video, 10 or 20 years later, when you want to have a babies, there will be a difficult time for you. So if you have a disease that you think that you have an abnormal period, you can try to solve right now. So this is the menstruation of 5 days. In biology, we only learn 5 days. We don't learn 7 days, or we don't learn 3 days. So after we have period, we will repair endometrium, because we have mentioned that period is not just blood. Period is also a shedding of the tissue at the uterus. So when they shed the tissue at this area, they will start to repair the tissue at the side. Okay, and then we have ovulation. Okay, we have mentioned what does ovulation means. Ovulation means that they will release secondary oocytes. In biology, okay, actually in generally, we will learn on day 14. Day 14 is the ovulation time. It means on day 14, the woman will start to release secondary oocytes. 3 days before and 3 days after is also a day that where the person will have the highest chances to have a baby. So if you want to have a baby in the future, you can try to have sexual intercourse on day 14, 3 days before, 3 days after. Okay, so you can try to count now. Okay, 3 days before, 3 days after. Then you can try to have babies. Of course, if you don't want to be a parent anytime at your age of life, then you have to avoid sexual intercourse on these 7 days. But to be honest, woman's cycle is not 28 days every single month. Sometimes it's 29, sometimes it's 30 days. So it's not to say very accurate, it has to be day 14. So that's why you have a buffer time, 3 days before, 3 days after. So this is ovulation time. Remember, if you want to have baby, try on this 7 day. Nobody try 28 days, guys. I mean, of course, if you can, okay, if you want, of course you can try. But if it's not, then you choose the correct timing. So learning biology is not just for you to go for exam, but sometimes you have to make sure that you know what you are doing, okay? You have to know that you know what you are doing for the rest of your life. Maybe when you are making babies, or maybe you want to prevent a pregnancy. This is also a learning of biology. It's not just for SPM purposes, okay? Next, on day 18 to day 28, we have thickening of endometrium wall. Thickening of endometrium wall is to make sure that if there is a pregnancy on day 14, then they can implant the embryo at these days. So they will thicken this area to make sure that the fetus implant into it. So if the endometrium wall is not taken, they will have a miscarriage of it. Okay, so this is the cycle, the green one, the purple one, the pink one, and the blue one. But actually in exam, they don't just ask this, okay? Usually, okay, most of the time, I would say most of the time, they will give you a graph. This is the graph that you have to understand. How do we understand this graph? Very easy, guys. You look sideways, you look downwards, or upwards also can, down also can, up also can, whichever, okay? You can look down, you can look up, and please make sure that this is day 0 to day 28, okay? They are in a sequence. Remember, as I mentioned, Period in not period, menstrual cycle in biology is 28 days. Remember, it's 28 days. So when we look at this, in exam, they will not give you the label of the hormone. Okay, imagine I just cancel this off. Cancel, just cancel this off, yeah? Okay, now how do we know which hormone first? Day 0 to day 5. Okay, let's look at day 0 to day 5. Day 0 to day 5. Day 0 to day 5. Okay, now in day 0 to day 5, we have to think about it. Which hormone is the highest? Okay, we find the color first. Okay, we have 4 different lines over here on day 0 to day 5. We have orange, we have pink, we have blue, and we have green. Which one is the one that is highest? Okay, from these 4, you can see that actually orange is the highest, right, on day 0 to day 5. So the first one, it will be FSH, because we learned, right, the first hormone that we learned just now is FSH, number 1. Okay, number 1, FSH. Okay, now second one, day 6. Okay, day 6 to day 13. Day 6 to day 13. Remember, it's always downwards or upwards. Okay, we cannot look sideways. Day 6 to day 13. Which line is the highest? We lack pink, blue, and green. As based on what you understand, day 5 to day 6, the second hormone that we learned just now is what? Estrogen. So the one that is the second highest is the one in blue color. So it's estrogen. Okay, and then the third one usually is on day 14. So day 14, the one is highest on day 14, as you can see, is the third one. So it's pink color, right? So the one in pink color is the third hormone. We call this as luteinizing hormone. This is number 3, luteinizing hormone. So obviously that after day 14, day 15 to day 28, the highest one should be progesterone. This is number 4. All of these hormones comes in sequence. If you know them in sequence, it's very easy for you to recognize what hormone and how you want to do the question. So remember, they are in a sequence, okay? In a sequence, remember, in a sequence, yeah? Okay, now, by looking at this, we know 1, 2, 3, 4 already. Okay, now what is the next step? The next step is to look downwards and upwards. Okay, again, remember again, what did I say just now? FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. They will stimulate the growth of follicle, okay? The growth of follicle. Look upwards, guys. Can you see the follicle is actually growing? From primary follicle, they will grow into a secondary follicle. That is the function of FSH. When you look downwards, the person is having menstruation, means the girl is having period when her FSH is actually high. Okay, next, on day 6 to day 13, we have estrogen. What is the function of estrogen? Estrogen is to make sure that the follicle grow into larger size. What is the larger size called? The larger size is called Graafian follicle. Okay, it's called Graafian follicle. It's also called mature follicle, but in biology, we call this as Graafian follicle. So estrogen is to make sure that the follicle grow into Graafian follicle. At the same time, let's look downwards. What is happening over here? They will repair endometrium wall. So the endometrium wall will start to repair, because you know that during menstruation, the endometrium wall will start to shed, right? So after that, the endometrium wall will start to repair, the estrogen will repair the endometrium wall. Okay, the third hormone, luteinizing hormone. The function of luteinizing hormone is to release secondary oocytes, which is, we call this as ovulation. On day 14, okay, actually some book they write day 13 lah, but yeah, also can, okay, you have to look at the question lah, day 13 or day 14 lah, ovulation. So during ovulation time, the woman releases secondary oocytes. Okay, when you look downwards over here, you can see that the endometrium is still repairing. Okay, they are still repairing. And then the outer layer of this follicle forms into corpus luteum, the flower shape. We have mentioned that what is the function of the flower shape? The corpus luteum. They will secrete progesterone. The function of progesterone is to thicken endometrium wall. Everything in the graph, it links together. Okay, everything in the graph, it links together. So if you know how to look at the graph, literally means that you can answer the question, because everything here links together. The hormones from the pituitary gland, usually they have short form. As you can see, FSH, LH, they are from the pituitary gland. Okay, they are from the pituitary gland. Progesterone and estrogen, they are from the ovary. Okay, most likely they are from the ovary lah. So this is the hormone that you have to know, the 4 hormones in total. Remember, FSH, estrogen, LH, progesterone. Everything here comes in sequence. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It comes in sequence. This is the graph that you will see in your exam. So please remember to understand this graph. It can be a structure question. It can be an essay question. But if you want to know the hard question, usually it will be a structural question, because sometimes they will ask you, if a person is pregnant, how would the endometrium wall looks like for 9 months? If a person is pregnant, the progesterone level, it will remain high like that, okay, for 9 months, and then the endometrium wall, it will remain thick for 9 months. So 9 months, it will remain thick. After she deliver a baby, then they only decrease in endometrium wall. So you have to remember to see whether the person is pregnant or not pregnant. Not pregnant, then they will decrease, they will form into a period again. If it's pregnant, then they will remain high for 9 months. Okay, this is how it works now. So you have to read the question. We will try a question later so you can understand better. Okay, now, when we talk about menstrual cycle, some question they always ask about the symptom of hormonal imbalance. Okay, hormonal imbalance, we have two different hormonal imbalance. We have PMS, we have menopause. Both are related to women, because only women will have menstrual cycle. Boys will got menstrual cycle, guys. So for women, for menstrual cycle, number one, for girls who have hormonal imbalance, number one, we have PMS. What is PMS? PMS usually happens 1 week before menstruation. The girls who have hormonal imbalance of progesterone and estrogen, okay, these two hormones, they have hormonal imbalance of these two hormones. So what would the girl usually experience? Okay, now I know for boys, they always say that girls have mood swing lah, girls get a little bit get angry lah, they get depressed time by time they are different mood lah. I don't know how to survive. Actually, okay, because of hormonal imbalance, I know that girls will have mood swing. Sometimes, of course, me as a girl, I can say this lah, okay, we can actually control our emotional even though we are in PMS. Sometimes maybe they just want to release the anger on you, okay, maybe that is what is happening to you. But the one that the boys see in girls during PMS is more on mentally, but actually physically she's in pain. She will have, okay, as a girl, okay, who carry out PMS, she will have a period cramp. Well, we don't call period cramp in biology, we call this as abdominal pain. Abdominal refers to your stomach, I mean like the uterus area, we call it abdominal. So the reason why women will have abdominal pain, because they have contraction and relaxation of the uterus, then they have abdominal pain. By Western and by traditional, we have different way of saying lah. So if you are a person who believe in traditional, people always say that, well, if you have period cramp, confirm you drink a lot of cold drink, you eat a lot of ice cream. That's by traditional way. You, especially, I don't know lah, maybe it's Malaysian or maybe it's a Malaysian Chinese lah, okay. But if you learn the Western way, Western people way, Western medicine way, if you watch a lot of drama, you also notice that people in Westerner, they drink cold water every single morning. Right, they drink, but there's no problem to them. You never heard of people saying the period cramp in Western countries. So I believe that is the way that we're being brought up and the eating habit that we have lah. So that's why I will not agree or disagree that cold drinks on ice cream causes you to have period cramp. But if that causes you to have serious period cramp, maybe you can reduce it so you will feel better when you have period cramp. Okay, of course, besides girls who have period cramp, the girls will also have breast pain. This breast pain is because of the progesterone and estrogen. Usually when the girl have PMS, the breast will pain is because that the breast will start to slightly hardens a little bit. So that's why she will have breast pain. And she will have bloating problem in the stomach. She feel like she's getting fat. She's being fat is because of bloating problem, but it's actually very normal. Of course, what you know is depression, anxiety, mood swing is what we usually see. So if you want to write symptom, you can choose any two symptoms to write. For boys to comfort your girlfriend who's having PMS, you can buy her a chocolate drink, hot chocolate. It has to be cocoa, not chocolate, not Milo only. Drinking warm water, okay lah. I cannot say it doesn't help, but when the girl is having PMS, the girl is having a lot of mood swing, right? So if you give her a hot drinks or hot water, I don't think she will feel better lah. You think what, your water is holy water, is it, guys? So that's why maybe you can buy her food that makes her happy if you want to survive longer lah, guys, okay? This is just a little advice from a girl for you to survive better, okay? So this is PMS. And then we have menopause. Menopause, it happens between 45 to 55 years old, but it varies different person because as I mentioned, some girls have period at 14, 15 or 16 years old. So when your period started earlier, let's say you have period at 5 years old, for example only guys, okay, then your menopause will end earlier, because when we have menstrual cycle, it means that our follicle will reduce every single time that we have period. So if you start early, it means that you're going to end early. If you start later, you're going to end later. It depends on the number of follicles that left in our body. So it's actually from millions, and then they reduce all the way to back to zero. So when we start to have menstruation, maybe we left about 1,000. So it depends on when you start your period and when you end your period. So this is actually menopause. Menopause, women, usually they will not get pregnant anymore because their ovaries will not produce FSH and LH, so much of FSH and LH. It means that they will not produce any follicles. They will not have any ovulation. So she will not produce progesterone and estrogen anymore. So the chances of them getting pregnant is actually very, 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 very low. So this is during menopause. Now, the symptom is very similar to PMS. They also have they also have mood swing, that what you all know, and also depression. They always get sad, or maybe they get triggered very easily. So this is during menopause. You can try to notice the woman around you, which is 45 to 55 years old, then you can see that's the symptom. And they have hot flushes. They always feel hot all the time. They have night sweat. They sweat a lot at night. Frequent urination, because maybe they cannot control their bladder. And then they have insomnia, the difficulty in falling asleep. So it's not a choice of not sleeping early. It's they're unable to fall asleep. They cannot fall asleep. So that's why people with menopause, they will have even serious mood swing, because when you lack of sleep, your body didn't get enough of rest, then it will lead to a serious mood swing. So we have to understand sometimes now they just don't want to scold you, maybe because they lack of sleep, they just cannot control their EQ, I would say. Okay, and then they have osteoporosis, high chances of getting osteoporosis. Osteoporosis, why women will have a higher chances of getting osteoporosis than men? Because men, they have no estrogen deficiency. Their level is always the same. But women, when you reach menopause, the estrogen level will decrease. Estrogen function is to absorb calcium, vitamin D, and phosphorus. So when you lack of these three, it also means that your body cannot absorb all these nutrients. Your bone cannot be strengthened. Your bone mass actually decreases. So that's why women who undergo menopause has a higher chances of getting osteoporosis. You can prevent osteoporosis by drinking milk when you are young. Let's say when you're 20 plus years old. And you hope that you can prevent. You can consume more supplement, which is vitamin D, calcium, or you can also start to drink milk when you are young. That's why a lot of, if you watch advertisement, Anlin advertisement ambassador is usually a woman, because it's more convincing, because woman has menopause, but man has no menopause. Man has another pause called andropause. Andropause, they have, for men, okay, it's about the same age. They have lesser sexual desire. They have lesser production of sperm. By physically wise, they will have hair loss problem, and they might also have mood swings sometimes, if in various. But actually, man and woman is different. Man is more on in biology, okay, they are able to control their emotional better than women. Okay, so this is PMS, menopause, and andropause. But in exam, they don't ask about andropause. They only ask about PMS and menopause. Okay, they ask about symptoms. So this is about menstrual cycle. You have to know menstrual cycle. At least you have to know about the hormones function, and also by looking at this graph. Okay, this is a very important graph that you have to understand. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of how does the question going to ask you. Okay. So first, the first question, we're going to go through this question so you can understand better how does it works. Diagram 2 shows the changes of 4 types of hormone which control the menstrual cycle and follicle development in ovaries. Name hormone label P, Q, R, and S. Okay, as I mentioned, when we want to label the hormone, we have to look at day by day, day 0 to day 28, day 0 to day 28. So as you can see, the first 5 days, which hormone is the highest? Obviously, the label for you is Q, right? So the first hormone, it will be FSH. The first hormone is FSH. Second one, we will have day 6 to day 13. So the second highest hormone is actually R. Can you see R? So this is estrogen. Okay, I just write short from estrogen. And then on day 13 to day 14, this question is actually on day 13 lah. Because as I mentioned, some book they write day 13, some book they write day 14. So P, assuming that this is day 13, it will be the third hormone called luteinizing hormone to stimulate ovulation. And then we have S, which is the progesterone. Don't have to think about it. The last one should be progesterone. So as I mentioned, when you look at the graph, you have to look at the day. So it's easier for you to identify what is that. Okay, now next we will label what is M as well. What is M? M is a flower-like shape. This flower-like shape is called corpus luteum. Corpus luteum. The function of corpus luteum is to stimulate the secretion of progesterone. So A, we have the answer already, PQRS. Next, if follicle-stimulating hormones stimulate the development of follicle, name the hormone that transforms Graafian follicle into corpus luteum. This is Graafian follicle. This is corpus luteum. What causes the changes from Graafian follicle to corpus luteum? Obviously, it's luteinizing hormone. Because once they release secondary oocytes, the outer layer, they will form into corpus luteum. Okay, C, what is the relationship between the level of hormone R and S with the thickness of endometrium wall? R and S is estrogen and progesterone. Okay, because they only ask you about endometrium wall, we have to understand the fact that these two hormones, they are related to the repairing and thickening of endometrium wall. Repairing is from the estrogen. Thickening is from the progesterone. These two is to make sure that they have a place for fertilized egg, which is the embryo, to implant into it if there is fertilization. If there's no fertilization, they will break down as a period. So if there is fertilization, these two hormones remain thick to make sure that there's an implantation of embryo. So if you read the answer, then you will know that why they have to be taken. Okay, I don't have to go through the answer. You can read it, but it's the one that I say just now. Okay, D, based on diagram 5, explain the relationship between structure M and level of hormone S. Okay, M is corpus luteum, S is progesterone. Usually, it's always corpus luteum and progesterone. What is the relationship between this? We have to say corpus luteum, they will secrete progesterone. The function of progesterone is to thicken the endometrium wall. We can say thicken and vascularize. If corpus luteum degenerate, as you can see, if corpus luteum degenerate, the progesterone will also decrease, because we have mentioned progesterone is from the corpus luteum. If there is no corpus luteum, it means that the progesterone will also decrease. So if you read, you see that when corpus luteum disintegrate, the progesterone, it will also decrease. This is the reason why. Okay, next E. If fertilization occurs, the level of hormone S is maintained and pregnancy is proceed. Explain the importance of hormone S. Okay, now what is hormone S? Hormone S is progesterone. Okay, back to this. So they say that when a person is pregnant, progesterone level is maintained. They ask you, what is the importance of progesterone? Progesterone is to thicken and vascularize the endometrium wall. When the endometrium wall is thick enough, the implantation of embryo can implant into it to make sure that there is no miscarriage. And when you have high level of progesterone, you have low level of FSH and LH, because I also mentioned when a person is pregnant, the person cannot get pregnant again when she is pregnant. So to prevent the to prevent the stimulation of ovulation, so the person will have no ovulation, the person will not get pregnant again when she is pregnant. So that's the importance of corpus luteum. Okay, F, explain the effect if hormone P is low. Hormone P is a luteinizing hormone. So when hormone P is low, it means that the person has no ovulation. No ovulation means that they will not release any secondary oocytes from the Graafian follicle. So that is the luteinizing hormone. Next, we have to do some calculation over here, but it's not the one that you require your calculator. Okay, try to count one by one. Diagram below shows a calendar page on a girl which has marked with circle the day she started menstruation. Okay, now started menstruation on 2nd of January. Predict the next menstruation for the girl. Okay, next menstruation, we have seen that menstrual cycle is 28 days as a cycle. So if she started on 2nd of January, what is the date? People like to add the number, okay? If you add 28, of course, it's not wrong. But what if the day is not on the 2nd, it's on the 15th? You don't add 28, right, guys? Because right now the question is on the 2nd, then you can add 28. But if it's on the 15th, you can add 28 because January has 31 days, February has 28 days, March has 31 days, right? We cannot do this way. The best way for you to do it, I will suggest you to count one by one. Okay, now, 2nd is day 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 days on 29, right? 30 day is the next menstruation because this is day 28. this is day 1. So 30th of January is the first day of the next menstruation. So that's why I say count one by one. Don't add because sometimes you cannot add. Okay, just count one by one. Okay, so this G. H, which date the girl is said to be fertile? Explain your answer. Fertile has to be day 14. Okay, day 14. Again, guys, count one by one. Don't add. Sometimes you just cannot add. Just count one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Day 14 is the 15th of January. So the answer is 15th of January because on day 14 of menstruation, a menstrual cycle, the girls will release secondary oocytes. Okay, I. The woman has sexual intercourse at day 14 for her menstruation, a menstrual cycle. Will this increase her chances of becoming pregnant? Explain your answer. Of course, yes, because day 14 is ovulation time. So when she releases secondary oocytes, then the sperm will fertilize with secondary oocytes. So the chances is actually very high. So for this is the question. Okay, this is some of the basic question that you have to know for your menstruation. Of course, if you know basic, that is the minimal requirement for you to understand. So the first thing that you have to know is the graph, and they always ask almost the same question. So if you know how to answer this question, definitely you will be able to answer most of the question. Like I would say similar question for the rest of the question that you're doing. Okay, now done with this, we're going to look at the next one, okay, which is development of human fetus. How do they develop human fetus? I will not mention about the process because it's a very simple process, but I will teach you how people know that the person is pregnant. How do they know that they are pregnant? Is to test the presence of a hormone called HCG. So this is a pregnancy test kit, not a COVID-19 test kit. This is a pregnancy test kit. So a pregnancy test kit works differently than the COVID-19. COVID-19 uses saliva. This one uses urine. So there's a urine droplet. I mean, there's a urine, the one that you can collect your urine over here. Okay, now, the result is the same as your COVID-19 because as you can see, if there is 2 lines, it means that congratulations. Okay, if you cannot COVID lah. If 2 lines in pregnancy test, also congratulations, you're going to be a parent soon. So this pregnancy test is to test the presence of a hormone called HCG. Okay, is to test the presence of HCG. This HCG will only be produced during pregnancy time. If the person is not pregnant, the person will never produce HCG. So when you have HCG, it also means that the person is pregnant. The first 4 weeks of pregnancy, they will have a highest level of HCG. Usually, let's say the person know that she is pregnant should be 1 month later because your period is later by 1 month, right? So you know that your period is supposed to come, but you never come. Maybe you have to suspect that you are pregnant. So usually people will buy a pregnancy test kit when the period is late for 1 month. So when you test about 1 to 2 months, you have highest level of HCG. So definitely you can see there's 2 lines if the person is pregnant lah. So HCG is to make sure that, okay, when the person has HCG, okay, what is the important? It's not just to test the pregnancy, okay? It's to make sure that the first 3 months, the mom will have enough of progesterone and estrogen for the first 3 months. We call this as trimester, the first trimester, the first 3 months, to make sure that the endometrium wall is taken, the implantation occurs properly. The next 6 months, because pregnancy is about 40 weeks, so the next, the second and third trimester, the next 6 months, the endometrium wall, it will not be taken by the HCG anymore, which is the hormone that we are talking about right now. It will be taken by the placenta, which is not the corpus luteum, it's the placenta. The placenta will take over the function of corpus luteum to take in the endometrium wall to make sure that the fetus won't miscarriage during pregnancy time. So the first 3 months, they use corpus luteum, progesterone, which is HCG as well. The next 6 months, they will use the placenta to maintain the thickness of endometrium wall. So now that you know how people use to test, what is the function of pregnancy test, is to test the presence of HCG. Okay, next, the role of placenta and umbilical cord. Okay, now how does this thing work? Because this is also one of the popular questions that you might see in your exam. It's also very easy, guys. When you look at this, we have to know that our body, when we are in the mother's womb, we are connected by an umbilical cord. This umbilical cord, they are connected to placenta. So placenta is an area where they carry out gases exchange, nutrient exchange, and also waste product. This umbilical cord, they are separated into 2 parts, umbilical artery and umbilical vein. 2 umbilical artery and 2 umbilical vein. Okay, now we have to remember one fact that human adult artery and vein is different than the fetus. Okay, artery for adult, I remember adult, okay, for artery, they will transport oxygen and also nutrients. Okay, if it's adult vein, they will transport carbon dioxide and waste product. This is adult. Okay, this is adult. But for fetus, when you're in the mother's womb, the function is different. Okay, it's totally different function. Umbilical artery transports waste product and carbon dioxide. Umbilical vein transport oxygen and nutrients. So it's opposite function. You don't have to know whether they are 2 or 1 because that don't really come out in exam. So we have to know the function of us being alive in amniotic fluid. There are questions going to ask you, how come the fetus will not drown in fluid surrounded area? Because when we are in the mother's womb, we don't use our nose to breathe. We use our umbilical cord to carry out gases exchange. So the first thing that we do when we expose to the world, we will use our lung to breathe by crying. When we cry, we will start to use our lungs. So that's why every kid, when they are born, they will start to cry. It's not because they are tired of the world. It's because that they need to use their lung to breathe. So it's not because they're tired of the world, guys. It's only one day. Oh, what is the thing that they have to be tired of? The function of amniotic fluid is to make sure that they're able to absorb shock. When the mother body hit on the table, they will have no miscarriage. It's not the drama that you see. They don't have miscarriage. But when they roll down from a staircase, when the impact is bigger, then the chances of them getting miscarriage is very high because amniotic fluid, usually they are able to protect them from a minor shock. Usually it's a minor shock. Okay, now, how do they protect them? You can imagine this way. When you're in a swimming pool, inside the swimming pool, if somebody push you in the swimming pool, when you're in a swimming pool, you will move backward in slow motion, right? Same thing going to happen to them. So if your mother hit on the table, you're going to have a slow-mo in your mother's womb. You're not going to have miscarriage. So it's a slow-mo. So that's why this is the fluid function, is to absorb the shock from the external factor. Okay, so this is how does it work out for the amniotic fluid. So the baby will not drown and die because we don't use our nose to breathe when we're in the mother's womb. Okay, the function of placenta has 2 functions. Number 1 is that site of exchange. So what do they exchange? You have to remember a fact that your mom always give you good thing, give you love. You always give your mom shit, okay? Something like that. It's the same concept. Even right now, I believe some of you still do the same. When you finish your food, you give your mom empty plate. Your mom give you food, you give your mom empty plate, right? So it works almost the same thing. Right now, this is fetus, means the babies, the fetus. This is the maternal blood. Umbilical artery, umbilical vein. Remember, whatever your mom give it to you is a good thing. Whatever you give to your mom is a bad thing. Your mom give it to you is a good thing by using umbilical vein. They will transport oxygen, vitamin, they transport amino acid, they transport glucose. But umbilical artery, you give it to your mom. You give to your mom what? Carbon dioxide and waste product, things that you don't want. So literally, shit like your mom. You give your mom shit like your mom give you love, you give your mom shit. So this is how does it work for placenta. Besides site of exchange, the other function of placenta is to act as endocrine gland. Okay, what is endocrine gland? Endocrine gland is to produce hormone. Okay, endocrine means hormone. They will secrete hormone. Okay, they will secrete hormone. So what hormone do they secrete? They have progesterone and also estrogen. Progesterone and also estrogen. Because I've mentioned just now, the first 3 months, they will use corpus luteum to secrete progesterone and to make sure that there's the thickening of endometrium wall during pregnancy time. The next 6 months, they will use placenta to secrete progesterone and estrogen to remain the thickness of endometrium wall. So this is actually how it works for placenta. So that's why we can survive, or we are able to live for 9 months in the mother's womb. So this is the function of placenta. Okay, in exam, how do they ask you? Let me give you a question example. Okay, so diagram 5 shows the fetus in the womb of his mother. X connects to the fetus through structure P. Okay, now what is P? Okay, now P is the umbilical cord. This is umbilical cord. And they ask you what is X. X is the placenta. This area here is the placenta. Placenta has 2 functions, remember. Yeah? Placenta, number 1 is to act as a site of exchange. Number 2 is to act as an endocrine gland. Structure X also act as important endocrine organs in the process of pregnancy. State 2 hormones secreted by structure X. So we have mentioned endocrine gland is hormone. 2 hormone, it means progesterone and estrogen, okay? Next, name one substance transported by P into structure X. So, by P into X. Into X means what? Into X, it means that things that you don't want, okay? Because it's into the placenta, right? Into the placenta, it means you're going to give to your mother. From the fetus to the mother, things that we don't want is carbon dioxide and urea. Okay, things that we don't want is carbon dioxide and urea. C, the fluid S in the fluid that serves a protective grounding to the fetus. Explain why the fetus does not drown in fluid S. Okay, they don't die in fluid S because, as I mentioned, when we are in the mother's womb, our lung is not functioning yet. We don't have to use our lung to breathe. We use our umbilical cord, okay, that connected to the placenta, that intake oxygen to obtain oxygen. So we don't use our nose to breathe. Yeah. D, explain how gases exchange can occur in structure X. Okay, now X is the placenta. When the question asks about gases exchange, we have to make sure that we mention two gases, which is oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we have to make sure that oxygen is from the mother to the fetus. Okay, mother to the fetus. Carbon dioxide is from the fetus to the mother. Things that we don't want, okay, things that we don't want, we give to the mother. Things that we want, is the mother that give it to us. Okay, this is the difference between them. So that's why P1. Oxygen from maternal blood diffuses into blood capillary through umbilical artery. Actually, the answer is not correct. I forgot to change the answer. This one's supposed to be umbilical vein because you know that it's opposite, right? Umbilical artery transport deoxygenated blood for babies. Okay, so the answer is not correct. So you can correct it's vein. Carbon dioxide diffuses from fetal blood into maternal blood capillary through umbilical. This is artery. Because artery transport things that, umbilical artery transport things that we don't want, umbilical artery. So all of the gases exchange, no matter it's by human or by a plant, it's always gas simple diffusion. Simple diffusion means higher to lower. It's called simple diffusion. Okay, next, E. Soon after fertilization, the zygote undergoes nuclear and cell division. As the zygote moves towards the endometrium, a series of rapid mitotic division result in the formation of solid ball cell called morula. The morula continue to divide to form blastocysts. Approximately 1/70 of the pregnancy women found that the blastocyst form will be implanted onto a fallopian tube. This condition is known as ectopic pregnancy. It means that the implantation is not in the uterus. We call this as ectopic pregnancy. Explain how the occurrence can threaten a pregnant woman. Okay, now we have to understand the fact that woman's uterus can expand. Fallopian tube cannot expand. So if the embryo grow in the fallopian tube, they cannot expand, right? So they will burst. When the fetus grow in the fallopian tube, they will burst. Not just the mother will die. The fetus anyhow will also die. So when the person know that she is pregnant and it's ectopic pregnancy, when you go to the doctor will tell you it's an ectopic pregnancy or not. Okay, when it's ectopic pregnancy, you have to go for abortion. Because anyhow, they cannot implant it back to the uterus again. So they have to abort it to make sure that the mom will not have excessive blood loss. The mom will not die because of the bursting of the fallopian tube. Because once the fallopian tube bursts, right, it also means that the mom cannot get babies in the future anymore because we have two fallopian tubes. If one bursts, you left one. If the other one also bursts, right, means there's no chance to get baby anymore. Unless they have to go for IVF or surrogate mother. That is another way because they can still produce ovum, just that the sperm cannot swim into the fallopian tube anymore. So ectopic pregnancy is very dangerous because it will cause the mom to lose a lot of blood, less of oxygen in the body, the mom will die. The fetus, eventually, they will also die. Okay, so this is about the importance of placenta in the fetal development. Okay, so this video, we will end until this part. If you have any question, of course, you can comment below. Hopefully, I will come back to YouTube soon. Okay. Oh, of course, hopefully you can understand how does menstrual cycle works because it's actually really very important for a lot of your exam, not just your SPM, but most of the exam that in your Form 5, because it's Form 4 Chapter 15, right? It's very important. So hopefully that you understand better for menstrual cycle, okay? So I will see you guys in next YouTube videos. Hopefully that if you enjoy the video, of course, you can watch other videos as well. Okay, so bye guys. See you guys next time.